Hi everyone, I am your host, Lynlainez, and this is the Frame of Mind podcast. A podcast designed for individuals who are constantly wanting to seek their high potential selves, open to wisdom and knowledge, and all talks self-improvement, mental health, and mindset growth. In this podcast, I aim to deliver a message that's going to help you, motivate you, and one day make you successful. With no further means, let's dive to this week's episode. Episode just came up in my mind, and I was just like, you know what? Let me press record. Let me talk about it. Let me just, put it out there. And today's topic, I wanted to talk about moving on and accepting and moving on, which is kind of crazy because I initially thought about stop being obsessed with your past. And then I started realizing that maybe it's the acceptance and the moving on part. Today is basically a motivational podcast. Last podcast episode that I recorded was definitely an educational podcast. I did not give out the chapters how I wanted to have them last week, but I definitely did have something there, kind of just put it out there. Today's structure might be kind of the same how it was last week's, but let's get going. Okay, so I started realizing that I had this really bad habit constantly looking at my archive, which then I started just realizing how I would self-sabotage a lot. That was the inspiration of my self-sabotaging and insecurity video, because of how constantly I would kind of trigger myself in remembering the past. I would see these photos of me and I would be like, oh my goodness, why was I so harsh in my vocabulary and put those words against me? Why did I do that? And then I started seeing that this was a consistent thought. And then I started seeing that it was a bad habit that I developed, always wanting to see what my past could have potentially hold it now. And I gotta admit, sometimes I do miss my old me, but sometimes we just gotta let that go too. That's what motivated me to initially speak about this. And it's not because I want you to move on from a relationship, but it's because I want you to move on from the attachment that you have with your old self. That attachment with your old self and carrying that version of you everywhere just allows you to block what growth was supposed to be in your life. Growth comes when you cut the bad root off. And sometimes we're so rooted into this idea of, oh, I miss my old me. I wish I was innocent, or I wish I was this level of being childlike. But sometimes those things that we had to go through, let's just say sexual immorality, that had to happen for a reason. And I will be open with y'all. I definitely had to have that experience to open my eyes and be like, hey, you gotta see something for yourself. You gotta see a future. And then at that moment, I would be in my past. I would be like, oh my goodness, I wish I didn't do this. I miss who I was back then and everything. But that's not the issue. The issue is you're allowing that thought to block your growth. And we're all meant to grow. We're all meant to learn something. But sometimes we get so obsessed with our past. Sometimes we get so obsessed of mistakes that we don't allow ourselves to be knitted into learning. We don't allow ourselves the opportunity to accept the new because we want to fix the past. But that only comes with obsession. That only comes with being repulsive. And because of your mistakes, you wish you could change them. But that was your choice. Being stuck in the past makes you feel stuck in general. And I started seeing that me constantly looking at my archive, comparing myself to the past, to who I am now, definitely, number one, triggered me in a way, not oh my gosh, ugly. No, I'm talking about it triggered what my high potential self could have with what my old self didn't have. That triggered me. I was like, yo, why am I allowing myself, my high potential self, to be down to the level? to where I don't want to be at. This version of me was horrible. But now that I am better, now that I'm with Christ, now that I am fulfilling something that I never thought I would fulfill, I'm way up here. So why are you going to miss the old you when the old you was kind of bad? Let me not just talk about missing your old self, because I know some of y'all are in a position where y'all are the bad selves right now and y'all wish you could go back to the good selves. But what I'm saying here is that you're not allowing growth to happen because you don't see the outcome of any chances of growth. You're limiting yourself because you already think that it's already done. But because of that mindset, there's no way or no chance of you to get there. Because, oh my gosh. Because the probability of you getting to where your high potential self is at or where you want to be at is 50%. And that 50% comes by a choice. It's a yes or a no. Am I going to accept it or am I going to decline that challenge? The issue here is that you're not challenging yourself enough to see results. You need to challenge yourself. And because of the constant thoughts that other people have about you that you might not change, you might not make that the biggest revenge that another person didn't think would happen. Make your growth speak louder and make it be a revenge. Growth is a revenge in a good way. When people see your growth, people are wanting to know more about you. The more people are going to be interested in you as a human being, the more opportunities you attract. I don't know if this is another idea that I jumped into, but stop thinking about the past when you're bored. I feel like when we're bored, we create this illusion of what we could have fixed. And I hear my dad tell me all of this, like, stop thinking about the past and all of this. And it's not that I want to stop thinking about it. It's like, I don't want to live by it. I am not going to live by my past. You choose to live in the past. And I made that decision that I don't want to live by the past. Yes, the situation in my childhood happened, but am I living how the entitlement of that situation is brought towards the media? No, I'm not living according to that. Hopefully not. That's your choice. If you want to break that stereotype, if you want to break that agreement, that's up to you. That's not up to me. This podcast is meant to challenge you. This podcast is meant to motivate you. And if you don't feel motivated yet, well, let me tell you this. The boredom that continues to roll in your life with the past, with missing your old you, you're going to start regretting not using your boring time for the time that you could have used to fulfill your potential. We don't only spend our time in social media, but we also spend our time reflecting a little bit too much on the past. We kind of got to let that go. And I feel like reflecting on your past is only good when you're trying to heal. But then after you're done healing, there's no need for you to look back. Definitely no need to look back. And for me, it has definitely been an issue where I was like, I already healed from like so many things, except for the binge eating. It's been a process, but I feel like still, if I want to challenge myself enough to overcome this issue right now, then I have to allow myself to limit what my past is preventing me to achieve. Because this version of you is always going to expect you to be there. This version of you is always going to expect you to value yourself this low. Then when your lower version of yourself starts seeing the growth, I'm telling you, that version of you starts getting jealous. And I'm saying this because that version of us is always going to be with us. Everything from our past is always going to be with us. Like, I don't know if y'all heard this like little story. I know I have in a standardized test, but it's like we're always going to be 1, we're always going to be 2 years old, we're always going to be 3 because the years come with us. But then the years ahead, like we got to always reach it. Yeah. That low vibrational, that low potential version of you is always going to be with you, no matter what. But whenever you're up here, not only other people are going to see how far you've made it, but even the lowest version of you is going to see it. And that version of you is always going to try to take you down. And this is what becomes the enemy. The lowest version of yourself. You got to kill this version of yourself. because you don't want this version of yourself to be with you and be up here, and then when you're up there, you're in the same value where you were in the beginning. Your enemy is yourself, and that self is always gonna hit you with these thoughts. They're gonna hit you with these agreements. But just remember, this version of you was ugly. And I'm not saying ugly like looks. I'm saying ugly as in nowhere to go. Ugly condition, like messy, ruined. And I don't know who's this for, because I'm probably talking to somebody that's definitely in the ruins of something, in the ruins of trying to find healing. Whoever this is for, you're going to find the healing. I know there's someone out there that's needing to heal, but what I'm saying here is stop obsessing over your past. Stop obsessing of what's already been done. That's just an overly attached issue that you have because you're so comfortable with the idea of the past. You're not comfortable with growth, and growth is uncomfortable. And the ability to limit yourself to grow is absurd because a lot of people are dealing with conditions that actually limit themselves not to grow. What's the issue with you? What makes you different from all these other people that have the actual condition that limits their growth? What's with you? Think about it. What is up with you that doesn't make you grow? I started seeing, oh my gosh, I have this example of this is a perfect example. There was this one girl, and I understand, y'all, we're going to go through relationships, we're going to have exes, whatever. But not only was she obsessed with the idea of the past, meaning she was romanticizing the past, but also she would always say that she misses how she was back then. Only because she allowed herself to get downhill. And then growing and recovering from that process, it is so difficult. That's another topic. But this is a sign for you to stop it before it gets like a real deep issue. Because for her, that simple romantic idolization of the past made her major. Made her not do good at school. It made her just overanalyze of what she could have done in the past better. But this is your sign. Stop obsessing over the past and move on. Anyways, guys, that was the topic for today. I didn't want to talk about like letting go yet or, let it end. There's so many topics about this. I just really wanted to talk about stop obsessing over your past, because how it has definitely influenced a lot of how my life is going, but not just how my life is going, but how I've seen other people constantly go back in time. And it's sad how we live and we romanticize the past because we can't feel fulfillment in our everyday lives. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Make sure that you give it a rating in Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and make sure also to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That will help me a lot. And that's all I have for this week's podcast episode. Anyways, guys, that's all I have for y'all today. Bye, guys.